This happened a few months ago. I had just moved into a small apartment after my breakup. I wanted some quiet time to focus on my work as a software developer. The first night was normal. I got set up, turned on my computer, and tried to get used to the sounds of an old building. But things got weird. Around 2 a.m., I woke up to muffled footsteps outside my door. It was a soft sound, like someone was walking on carpet. I thought it was a neighbor coming home late, so I let it go and tried to sleep again. But I couldn't shake it off. In the days that followed, I still heard those footsteps. They came back but felt different. They seemed more intentional. I could almost picture someone stopping outside my door, listening. The walls were thin, and the sounds echoed too much to be just in my head. One night, I even got up to check. When I opened the door, the hallway was empty. I wasn't scared, but I felt uneasy. I tried to convince myself it was nothing, but the more I heard, the less I believed that. One evening, I noticed strange shadows outside my window. I thought they were just branches moving in the wind at first, but they looked like they were twisting, almost reaching at times. A chill ran down my spine every time I caught sight of them. I don't know why, but I started avoiding looking outside. Then one night, I heard a faint tapping sound in the wall. At first, I thought it was plumbing. It was rhythmic, almost like someone was trying to communicate. I stood still, straining to listen. My heart raced. I felt confused and even frightened, but I didn't want to admit that. I felt like someone was trying to get my attention. I don't know how long I stood there, but it felt like forever. I wanted to scream or knock back, but I just ignored it. Maybe that was a mistake. I kept telling myself I was overreacting, but dread crept in. Later that night, as I lay in bed, just trying to drift off, I heard a voice. It was low and raspy, almost like it was coming through the walls. I wanted to call out, but I just froze. My heart was racing. I swear it said my name that I thought I was imagining it, so I buried my head under the covers. I'm not sure when I fell asleep, but I woke up with my door wide open. I never remembered opening it. Now, I still hear those footsteps sometimes. It's not just at night anymore. The echoes follow me, like they know where I am. I still can't figure out why it happens. Are they just sounds from an old building? Or am I really not alone? I wish I knew the answer, but it keeps me up at night. The next day, I decided I had to get out of my apartment. I needed to distract myself. I went for a walk, hoping some fresh air would help clear my head. As I strolled through the nearby park, I noticed couples sitting on benches, chatting and laughing. I envied their ease. I wanted to feel that normal, carefree sense again, but thoughts of my apartment pulled me back. When I returned home, I hesitated outside my door. The hallway felt colder, as if it was holding its breath. I took a deep breath and opened the door. The apartment looked just as I left it. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling something was off. Later that night, I tried to focus on my coding. I turned up the volume on some music to drown out my anxiety. But as I sat there, I heard the footsteps again. This time, they sounded closer, like they were right outside my door. I paused the music and held my breath. The footsteps stopped. I felt a knot tighten in my stomach, then, almost as if responding to my fear, I heard the tapping again. It was sharper this time, more insistent. I decided to record it on my phone, thinking I could find some logical explanation later. I pressed the record button and set it on my desk. I waited, listening intently. Moments passed, and just when I was starting to think it was all in my head, the voice returned. It was faint, but I was sure it said something. I played back the recording. The sound was muffled, but I could definitely hear it. It was my name again. My heart raced that I started to feel dizzy. I couldn't figure out what was real. Maybe I was losing it. I picked up my phone, wanting to call someone, anyone. But who would understand? Taking a deep breath, I opened the door, ready to confront whatever was haunting me. The hallway was flooded with yellow light from a nearby lamp, but it felt empty. I stepped outside, looking both ways. Then I saw something at the end of the hall, a shadow. My breath caught in my throat as I squinted. I couldn't make it out, but it felt like it had shape, something watching me. I took a step forward, heart hammering, but the shadow flickered and vanished. I ran back inside, slamming the door shut. I was shaking. Surely, I was just imagining things. I leaned against the door, trying to slow my breath. But then, I heard it again, the low voice, echoing through the walls. Now I was sure, this was no coincidence. I had to find out what was happening. I needed answers. But just as I felt ready to take action, I heard my door click, as if someone was trying to push it open from the other side. I froze. I felt trapped, every instinct screaming for me to run, but my feet wouldn't move. I stared at the door, waiting for what came next. I held my breath, listening closely. The sound of persistent rattling was more than just an echo in my mind. I pressed my ear against the door. I could hear something, muffled and low, like whispers. They were barely coherent but oddly familiar. My name slipped into the mix again. I backpedaled, heart pounding. I had to escape this feeling. I snatched my phone and opened the recording app, pressing play. The voice was there, clearer this time. It called out to me, urging me, but in a way that felt wrong. I didn't want to hear it, but I replayed it over and over, seeking clues. I turned to the door, feeling the weight of something heavy behind it. The sound of scraping came again, like nails on wood. My skin crawled, and I stumbled away from the door until my back hit the wall. I couldn't just sit here. I had to act, even though part of me screamed to run. I knew I couldn't leave without answers. What if whoever or whatever was out there knew something I didn't? I took a deep breath. I needed a plan. I glanced around my apartment, seeing the familiar mess. Papers, coffee mugs, and clothes lay strewn about. None of it mattered right now. My gaze landed on my desk where the recording played its haunting loop. There had to be something in those sounds that meant more than I realized. That I grabbed my laptop. If I could tap into the building's camera system or find a way to connect with my neighbors, maybe I could gather information that could piece together what was happening. I jumped on my bed, using it to reach the window. If I was quiet about it, I could look out without drawing too much attention. That I pushed aside the curtain and peered into the dim courtyard. The moonlight spilled across the pavement, and shadows danced under the trees. There was no one out there, but it felt wrong, too quiet. Then I saw something flicker in the corner of my vision. It was another shadow, but this one wasn't just passing. It stood still, staring up at me. Adrenaline shot through me. I leaned closer to the window, squinting. The shadow took shape, becoming a figure, almost indistinguishable from the night. A chill ran down my spine. Who was it? Why were they watching me? My phone buzzed, cutting through the tension. I jerked back, almost losing my balance. I glanced down to see a message flash on the screen: "You shouldn't be here." What did that mean? My heart raced even faster. Was this a joke? My fingers trembled as I typed a response. Who is this? I took a breath, trying to steady myself. And then, without warning, my phone died. The screen went black, and the silence grew heavier. Before I could react, the door rattled again, this time with more force. A chilling realization hit me: this wasn't just in my head. I was no longer alone. I scrambled off the bed, looking around for a way out, but the only escape was blocked by the unseen force trying to get in. Then I heard the whispers again, more insistent, mingling with the rattle. They were all around me now, swirling in the air. With my heart racing, I finally opened my mouth to shout or scream, but then everything went quiet. The rattling stopped. I swallowed hard. That silence felt worse than the footsteps. Something wasn't just waiting outside. It was inside. I glanced back at the door, feeling dread swell inside me. Something was coming, and I might not be ready for what it was. I took a step back from the door, holding my breath. The stillness pressed around me, thickening the air like a fog. Whatever was out there or in here was biding its time. For a brief moment, fear paralyzed me, but I couldn't let it win. I needed to think that. I raced back to my desk and opened my laptop. The recording app's interface glowed in the darkness, a tiny comfort. I needed to hear the voice again, maybe it would provide a clue. I plugged in my earbuds, hoping the familiar sounds would anchor me. As the voice played, I strained to catch every word. "Help me," it echoed softly. There was a strain in the tone that sent chills through my body. My gut twisted. This wasn't just someone calling for help. This felt personal. Suddenly, a loud bang jolted me out of my thoughts. My heart jumped. I looked toward the door. My instincts screamed for me to run. But I couldn't abandon my search for answers. I needed to know what was going on. I turned back to my laptop, pulling up the building's camera feed. It took a moment to load, my hands shaking as I clicked through the security app. At first, it showed nothing, just empty hallways. Relief washed over me until I noticed something. There was a flicker on one of the screens. My breath caught as I saw a shape move in the lower hallway. It wasn't just passing through. The figure stood in front of my door, glancing back toward the camera with its head slightly tilted. I squinted, but the darkness obscured its features. Then, in the feed, a flash of light illuminated the figure. It held something in its hand, a glint in the low light. My heart raced. What was it holding? I jerked my head back to the door, wishing I could barricade it. The whispers returned, louder now. They were frenzied, almost angry. I couldn't make out the words, but the desperation felt suffocating. That I felt the floor vibrate under me. Something was moving, forcefully. It rattled the door again, and I stumbled backward, my fingers slipping over the keyboard. I needed a way out, but I couldn't see one. In that moment, I heard a confrontation, a voice different from the whispers. It wasn't pleading, it was commanding, demanding. "Open it." Panic enveloped me. My mind raced. Should I respond? Would that even help? I decided against it, opting to stay silent, hoping it would lessen whatever was building outside. Then, out of nowhere, something crashed into the door, sending vibrations through the room. I could hear the wood creak under the pressure. I couldn't hold back any longer. I needed to escape, but there was nowhere to hide. That's when I saw it, my bedroom window. It was the only way out now. I rushed to it without thinking twice, shoving it open with all my might. As I climbed through, a frantic thought struck me: what if whoever was out there had already seen me? I slipped out and landed hard on the ground, the night air sharp and invigorating. I glanced back at the window, and for the briefest moment, I saw the figure, framed in darkness, watching me. The whispers quieted as I ran, but the weight of their urgency clung to me. I still didn't know what was waiting behind that door, and I wasn't sure if I ever wanted to find out. I sprinted across the yard, my heart racing as I rounded the corner of the house. The adrenaline coursed through me, pushing away the chilling thoughts of what I had just escaped. I glanced back at my bedroom window, half expecting to see that figure still watching me. But it was dark now, nothing but shadows. That I needed to think. I ducked behind a large tree in the front yard, taking a moment to catch my breath. The cool night air felt like a balm, but fear still coursed through my veins. I was exposed out here, far from the safety of my home. That idea hit me like a punch: home should be my sanctuary. Instead, it had become a place of nightmares. As I leaned against the rough bark, my thoughts raced. What had I just witnessed? Why was I hearing those desperate whispers? And that voice demanding, "Open it." Who was it? I had to figure it out. I pulled out my phone, fingers trembling as I opened the security app again. The feed loaded slowly, and a sense of dread washed over me. I watched the still image of the hallway outside my door. Just moments ago, it had been filled with movement, and now it was like a ghost town. After a minute, I saw something shift, another flicker. My blood ran cold as I realized it wasn't my imagination. The figure was back, its form barely visible in the gray tone of the footage. It was pacing now, up and down the hallway. Suddenly, my phone buzzed in my hand, a notification lighting up the screen. A new alert from the camera system. I opened it quickly, my heart pounding in my chest. It was the footage captured from earlier that night when I had first heard the voice. I started to play it, tense as I settled back against the tree. The screen showed my hallway, my heart sank at how normal everything looked. That was until the shadows shifted. In the corner of the frame, I saw a mass appear. A figure stepped into view, the glint of something metallic catching the light. I leaned closer, squinting at the blurred image. It was facing my door, but its features were still obscured. Then it waved. Just a short flick of the hand, almost casual. The chill that washed over me was worse than before. Who was this person? Did they know I was gone? I felt exposed, my pulse quickening again while I watched the figure linger at my door. My eyes widened as I noticed something else. There was someone else behind it, half hidden, like it was just waiting for the right moment to move. I recoiled, clutching my phone tightly. My mind raced. I couldn't stay here too much longer. What if they noticed I wasn't inside? Panic clawed at me like a wild animal. I knew I had to reach out for help, but who would believe me? The only other person nearby was my neighbor, and I didn't have her number. I needed to act quickly. Just then, I heard a rustling in the bushes behind me. I turned, eyes widening in dread, and that's when I saw a glimmer of movement. Someone stepped into the glow of the streetlights coming from the road. My heart sank. It wasn't just the figure in my hallway. Someone else was here, coming closer. I couldn't stay hidden anymore. I had to make a choice now, confront the figure that had haunted my home, or flee deeper into the night. I didn't think. I bolted without hesitation, dashing between the thick trees lining the yard. The shadows swallowed me, but I could still hear the faint rustle of footsteps behind me. My breath came in quick gasps as I crouched low, hoping to blend into the night's darkness. The sound of crunching leaves filled the air, getting closer and closer. Was it that figure from my hallway? Or was it just my imagination running wild? I peered through the branches, heart hammering as I scanned the edge of the yard. Then I saw them again, a silhouette emerging from the light. It was a woman, tall and thin, her face half hidden by the shadows cast from the street. She appeared unsteady, swaying slightly as if she were searching for something. I couldn't make out her features, but the dread pooling in my stomach told me something was very wrong. Help! She suddenly called out, her voice trembling. Please, somebody help me. I hesitated. Was she in danger? Or was this another trap? My instincts screamed at me to run, but part of me was drawn to her cry. I couldn't just leave someone to suffer. I needed to know more, but how could I approach her without revealing my own fear? Taking a shaky breath, I stepped from behind the tree, trying to keep my voice steady. What's wrong? The moment I spoke, her gaze snapped towards me, eyes wide with desperation. They're coming for me. I need to hide. Those words sent a chill down my spine. Who was coming? Why was she here, alone in the dark? I wanted to ask, but something stopped me. The whispers from earlier echoed in my mind. Before I could think another thought, the ground shook with a heavy thump, like something was crashing through the bushes behind her. My heart dropped. This was not just a woman in distress. The danger was real, and it was closing in fast. Get inside! I shouted, my instincts taking over. Quick! Without waiting for a response, I bolted toward my home, glancing back to see if she followed. She stumbled behind me, her breath coming in panicked gasps. I reached the porch and fumbled with the lock, my fingers slipping in the rush. Finally, the door creaked open, and I yanked her inside just before I heard another crash outside. We both hit the ground, catching our breath in the dim hallway, the door narrowly shutting behind us. "Who are they?" I whispered, my voice trembling. "Why are they after you?" Her eyes darted to the windows, fear etched deep across her features. "I don't know," she replied, shaking her head. "They have been watching me, creeping around at night." "I thought I lost them watching you." I felt my blood run cold. "How? Why?" She opened her mouth to answer, but before another word could escape, the sound of footsteps echoed through the hallway behind us. My heart raced as dread washed over me again. "Someone's in the house," I whispered, staring at the door. The woman's eyes widened in horror, fingers trembling as she clutched my arm. "We can't let them find us." I knew I needed a plan. We had to get to safety. But how could I protect us from whatever horror lurked just outside? The footsteps grew louder, and my heart pounded in my chest. I felt like a fragile leaf caught in a storm. I strained my ears, hoping to pick up something, anything, that would help me understand who or what was lurking in my home. "Go to the back room," I whispered urgently, trying to stay calm. "Hide. I'll check it out." She shook her head, her grip tightening on my arm. "No, don't leave me. What if it's them? It could be someone else. I just need to see. Please, trust me." With a final hesitant glance at her, I crept toward the hallway. Each step felt heavy, the old floorboards creaking under my weight. I paused just before the corner, holding my breath as I strained to listen. The footsteps had stopped, leaving an eerie silence in their wake. That silence felt wrong. I longed for some sound, anything, to break the tension. I stepped farther, inching into the moonlit stretch of the hallway. Shadows danced on the walls, making it hard to tell what was real and what was just my imagination. Then I saw a shadow flitting across the beam of light from the window. It was fast, almost too quick to catch. My heart raced again, and a chill went down my spine. I wasn't alone anymore. I turned back to the woman, wanting to reassure her that things would be fine. But when I looked, she was gone. Panic surged through me like ice water. "Are you?" I started to call, but my voice caught in my throat. I was frozen, dread seeping in. Had she gone to hide? Or had something pulled her into the darkness? I had to know. "Hello?" I called out softly, hoping for a response. Silence answered me, thick and suffocating. Just when I was about to turn and search for her, I heard it again, the footsteps. Closer this time. My pulse quickened as I crept back toward the living room, my heart hammering in my ears. I peeked around the corner and stopped dead. There, in the middle of the room, was a figure. It stood with its back toward me, motionless and ominously still. The way it had its head tilted sent a wave of nausea washing over me. "Who are you?" I managed, my voice cracking. The figure didn't move. I took a cautious step forward, and then everything shifted. Just as I made my move, it turned around, but the face was cloaked in shadows. I couldn't make sense of its features. Something in my gut twisted at the sight. Suddenly, a sharp sound, a loud crash came from the back of the house, shattering the stillness. I jumped, adrenaline flooding my veins. "What was that?" I whispered, breathless. The figure in the living room turned toward the noise, and in that moment, I caught a glimpse of its eyes. They glowed faintly, cold and empty. Then it spoke. "You shouldn't have locked the door." My heart dropped. That voice wasn't a whisper, it was a raspy invitation, promising chaos. I turned to run back to the hallway and find the woman, but before I could, the front door swung open violently. Light flooded the room, and I stumbled backward. My eyes darted to see who had entered. But when I turned around, the figure was gone. I couldn't breathe. What was happening? I had to find the woman, I needed to make sure she was okay. But just as I had that thought, I heard her scream from the kitchen. Everything inside me went cold. Without thinking, I dashed toward the sound, the urgency propelling me forward. I had to know what was happening before it was too late. I reached the kitchen, the air thick with fear. My breath came out in rapid bursts as I flung the door open. The sight that greeted me sent a chill down my spine. The woman was huddled in the corner, hands over her mouth, eyes wide and glazed with terror. What happened? I demanded, scanning the room for any sign of danger. There was nothing. Just the bright glow of the overhead light casting long shadows against the walls. It was she stammered, her voice trembling. I saw it. It was in the pantry. Saw what? I pressed, trying to keep my voice steady. I edged closer, carefully monitoring every creak of the floor beneath my feet. Something moved. I thought it was you, she said, shaking her head. But it was different. Different. The word hung in the air, heavy and foreboding. I felt the unthinkable latch onto my thoughts. What if the figure wasn't an intruder? What if it was something worse? Let us check the pantry, I suggested, forcing courage into my voice. I took a step toward the pantry door, anxiety gnawing at me. The woman looked like she wanted to pull me back, but I knew I had to be brave. For both of us, slowly, I opened the door, the hinges creaking like a whisper of dread. The small space was dark, shelves lined with canned goods casting twisted shapes in the shadows. I squinted into the gloom, my heartbeat pounding in my ears. Nothing moved. Just silence, thick and oppressive. Nothing else here, I said, relief flooding me, but it was short-lived. As I turned back to the woman, I noticed something, a small, dark shape hidden behind a box on the lower shelf that I knelt down, using my phone's flashlight to illuminate it. My heart sank as I focused on the object. It was a doll, one of those porcelain ones that looked far too lifelike, its eyes staring up at me with an eerie intensity. A glint of silver caught my eye. A knife lay beside it, its blade gleaming in the light. Why is this here? I whispered, dread creeping into my voice. The woman crept closer, peeking over my shoulder. Her breath caught. That wasn't here before. I swear. A sudden rush of movement made us both jump. I spun around, gripping the doll tightly in my hand. The front door slammed shut, the sound echoing through the house like a gunshot. Did you see that? I gasped, looking back at her. The panic in her eyes mirrored my own, but before she could respond, the lights flickered, casting the kitchen into darkness for a brief moment. I felt a rush of cold air, thick with the scent of something rotten. Where's the flashlight? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. The woman stumbled back as if she'd seen a ghost. I don't know. Panic surged again, clawing at my throat. I grabbed the doll and the knife, holding them as if they could protect me from the unseen horror surrounding us. Then, in an icy whisper, I heard it again. You shouldn't have locked the door. Everything went still, the air growing heavier. A knot in my gut tightened. I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. I began to back away, thoughts racing through my mind: who was out there, waiting for us, and what would happen next, and then I noticed something on the floor, a faint outline in the dust. Someone had been there, their footprints leading deeper into the house. My heart raced as I realized we weren't safe. Not anymore. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my nerves. The footprints were too distinct, large, heavy, leading away from us. I felt adrenaline coursing through my veins. Whoever had been here was nearby, and I couldn't shake the sense of urgency. Stay close, I said, pointing toward the hallway. The woman nodded, her eyes darting around the room, filled with fear. I tightened my grip on the knife and led us out of the kitchen, the doll still clutched in my other hand. As we ventured into the dim hallway, the sound of our footsteps felt like a betrayal, each creak of the floorboard screaming for attention. The air hung heavy with unease, every shadow a potential threat. We passed the living room, the sofa casting a dark silhouette against the wall. I glanced inside, but it was empty. "Where do you think it went?" she whispered, her voice trembling. I shook my head, feeling lost. "I don't know." I began to move toward the stairs leading to the second floor, my gut churning with the realization that we might have to confront whatever was lurking in the house. That's when I heard a faint thud, as though something had been dropped upstairs. My heart raced, and I froze mid-step. "Did you hear that?" I whispered. She nodded, eyes wide. "What if it's—" "Shoo," I cut her off, raising a finger to my lips. I strained to listen, sensing there was something, or someone, above us. A moment later, the sound came again. This time it was a soft dragging noise, like something scraping against the floorboards. "Stay here," I ordered, my voice barely audible. The woman took a shaky step back, fear obvious on her face. But I couldn't just wait. The curiosity was gnawing at me like a dog with a bone, and I had to know where the noise was coming from. I crept up the stairs, each step feeling like a daring act. The shadows danced around me, a cloying darkness that seemed to whisper secrets. I reached the landing, and a bead of sweat rolled down my temple. "Please don't let it be a person," I muttered under my breath. My eyes scanned the hallway, landing on the door to the guest room. It was slightly ajar, a sliver of light spilling out. I took a tentative step forward. Suddenly, the dragging sound stopped, and in the thick silence, dread settled in my chest. I reached for the doorknob, hand trembling, then pushed the door slowly open. Inside, the room was empty, the bed unmade, the curtains fluttering in the draft. An unsettling energy filled the air. But then I saw a piece of paper on the floor, half hidden under the bed. I crouched down to grab it, and just as my fingers touched the rough edge, a loud bang sounded from downstairs. I jumped back, heart racing, every instinct screaming for me to run. But I hesitated. The paper crinkled in my hand, revealing a message scribbled in frantic, uneven letters: "It knows you're here." Before I could process its meaning, I heard footsteps approaching, heavy and deliberate. Someone was coming up the stairs. I pressed myself against the wall, holding my breath. The face that appeared at the top of the steps sent horror coursing through me, a shadowed figure, blocking out the light behind. I couldn't see who it was, but I didn't want to find out. I felt a surge of adrenaline push me into action, and I darted back into the guest room, shutting the door with a soft click. The sound of footsteps echoed through the hall, a steady approach that made my heart hammer wildly. I had to find an escape, but the only way out was through that door. The figure paused, lingering just outside, breathing heavy as if assessing its next move. A part of me wanted to scream at the intruder, or maybe, whoever was inside was something worse. I turned my focus back to the paper crumpled in my hand. "It knows you're here." Those words echoed in my mind. Who knew? And how? Panic surged within me. I barely registered the sound of my pulse thrumming in my ears. I tiptoed toward the window, pushing the curtain aside. But before I could process a plan, the footsteps intensified. There was no more time to waste. I pressed my ear against the door. Silence. I braced myself, heart racing, and opened it just a crack. The hallway lay still, but I sensed danger creeping in, ready to pounce. Gathering what courage I had left, I slipped out into the dark corridor. My breath quickened as I stepped into the gloom, instincts warned me to be quiet. I crept toward the stairs, hoping to find safety below. Each creak of the old floorboards felt like a scream. From the darkness, I heard muffled whispers, again. They surged with anger and desperation, urging me to turn back. I had just reached the top of the stairs when an icy draft swept through, and I froze. "No!" A voice screamed from outside the house. It was familiar and chilling. My heart stopped as I recognized the woman. I glanced back toward the guest room. Just then, I caught sight of movement from down the hallway. The shadow of a figure darted into the bathroom. I swallowed hard, torn between checking on her and the risk that whatever had invaded my home might seize the chance to trap me. That I took a deep breath and raced toward the bathroom instead, pushing the door wide open. "Are you here?" My voice cracked as I scanned the empty room. No sign of anyone. Panic swept over me, realizing she might be in trouble. I turned to exit, but the door slammed shut behind me. The lock clicked into place. "Let me out!" I shouted, pounding the door with my fists. "I'm not going to stay in here." All I could hear was the laughter that rippled through the air, high-pitched and unnatural. Shadows flickered in front of me, undulating against the walls. Before I knew it, something cold gripped my wrist. I spun around to see a hand reaching for me from behind the mirror. I let out a choked scream, forcing my way through the door. My body collided with the wood, but it didn't budge. I heard that familiar whisper, "You shouldn't have locked the door closer now," mocking my fear. I felt a surge of terror coursing through me and charged at the door with all my strength. It burst open, and I tumbled into the hallway, scrambling in a frenzied hurry. I could hear my heartbeat echo in my ears as I sped down the stairs, taking each step two at a time. As I hit the last step, I spotted the front door slightly ajar. Freedom lay just a few feet away. I bolted, praying I wouldn't be stopped until I was outside. But just as I reached for the door, it slammed shut with a force that shook the frame. "Please!" I shouted, hoping someone would answer. I could hear the footsteps rushing toward me again. They were relentless and growing louder. Panic struck my heart again, the weight of something pressing down from above. Then, through the wall of shadows, the woman appeared again, her eyes wide and horrified. "You need to get out," she shouted, her voice a frantic plea. "It's coming." "No!" I screamed back, my throat raw from the night's terror. "What is it?" "They want to take you. The ones who watch." She gestured frantically. "I don't know how, but we have to find a way out. You have to trust me." There was no time to think. I nodded, pushing whatever remnants of fear aside. Together, we rushed toward the back door. That's when we heard a deep growl that reverberated through the walls that we were running out of time. As we reached the back door, I rattled the knob, twisting with all my might. It wouldn't budge. "No. Come on!" I shouted, banging against the door. "Break it!" she urged. My heart raced, and without a second thought, we threw our weight against it, crashing through the wood. The night air bit at my skin as we burst into the backyard. I could feel the shadows creeping in all around us. Tendrils of darkness reached out from the edges of the trees, pulling at my legs, threatening to drag me back. "Keep running!" the woman called to me as she glanced over her shoulder. Behind her, I could see the figure lurking against the house with that abnormal tilt of its head. The distance between us and the street narrowed as we sprinted forward. I could hear the whispers rising, echoing louder, desperate and angry. "Don't look back!" I yelled, panic clawing at my throat. We fought through the shadows until we burst into the light of the street, tumbling out onto the pavement. I gasped for breath, and we both stopped to catch our breath. But as I looked behind, the house loomed darkly silent now, the horror contained within seething against the light at its threshold. Still, I could feel a sense of uncertainty hanging in the air, as though the shadows were only biding their time before they launched again. What had just unfolded? Had we really escaped, or merely delayed the inevitable? I glanced back at her, my heart racing. "Are you okay?" She nodded, tears pooling in her eyes. "I don't know what they were, but I felt them closing in," she whispered. Holding her arm, we took a few shaky steps back, feeling the lingering dread of what still resided inside. Would it ever end? Or would I forever be haunted by what I didn't understand of whispers, darkness, and the uncertainty that lay just beyond the daylight? I took a deep breath, glancing back over my shoulder at the house, knowing I might never truly feel safe again. But as I looked forward to the road ahead of us, I realized my questions would remain unanswered. Some shadows, it seemed, were never meant to be illuminated.